What's going on YouTube? So Mazda has been on a kick with a lot of new products in recent years, and this CX-90 is their largest SUV. And we have been living with this for the past week, and it received some pretty big upgrades this year. So is it packing more of a punch than ever? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Let's go ahead and start out under the hood. So with the CX-90, there's three powertrain options. They range in power from 280 horsepower to 340 horsepower, but all of them have an 8-speed automatic transmission and standard all-wheel drive. Most models have a combined fuel economy of 25 mpg.
Now, the base price of the CX-90 is $38,000, and if you're looking to buy one or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes to get the best price. Now, this, of course, is a real-world review, so that means that we have things to talk about, such as our real-world experience, fuel economy this week, our impressions, as well as if we like it better, the same, or worse after living with it.
But let's go ahead and close up the hood because the CX-90 has been known for having a sophisticated exterior and luxurious interior, which we need to take a look at. Now, as far as the exterior is concerned, like I said, this has a very sophisticated look. A lot in this segment are very boxy these days. This is smooth and elegant, and it's kind of going for that luxury vibe. You can see that up here in the front with our signature Mazda grille. We have the chrome accenting through here, and also since we have the loaded Premium Plus, we have a chrome accent strip down there at the bottom as well. Now, moving over here to our headlights, we have standard full LED headlights as you would expect. However, we have the adaptive LED headlights. That's actually a new feature for all Premium Plus trim levels. That means every powertrain. And of course, this vehicle is very complicated when it comes to the trim structure. We have another video where we really get into the nitty-gritty of like which features are added to which trim level. But as you can see, there's a ton of different ones with new additions for 2026. As we walk to the back, you'll continue to see that design language, which is a little bit smoother than what you see in the typical vehicle in this segment.
Yeah, and I think it looks very classy and elegant. As far as specific design touches, we have a spoiler right here. We have our wiper right underneath. And then let's take a look at our taillights. Of course, Mazda is known for having some premium lighting. And when it comes to the taillights, you will have that. So we have an LED brake light, LED reverse light, and LED amber fading turn signal. Overall, it looks pretty good. And then as we drop down to the lower fascia, a lot of this is going to be finished in body color. No exposed exhaust outlets, and your tow capacity is 5,000 pounds as a maximum.
Next up, we have the wheels. You're going to see a 21-inch alloy actually on every single version of the CX-90 for 2026, except the base Select. So that is certainly a nice premium touch. As you can see, we've got the contrast design on board. We have a little bit of cladding around the wheel arches there, nothing too much. And then as far as the mirrors are concerned, blind spot monitoring and heating are both standard equipment. You can also get power folding and auto dimming starting at the Premium Sport trim.
Now at the side, you may notice that this seems like a very big SUV, and indeed it is. It's 201.6 inches, which actually makes it larger than most of the other options that you can get in the segment. We have some chrome accenting on their window surrounds, as well as chrome roof rails up here at the top. And let's talk safety systems, because it is a family three-row after all. All of your active safety features will be standard equipment on this model. Additionally, the higher-end models will gain things like rear auto braking. And as far as functionality, we did drive it on a pretty long road trip this week, and we found all those systems to work quite well. Now, the only thing that we found a little bit annoying was the drowsiness detection. It was a little bit sensitive, to say the least. But guys, there's a lot to talk about on the inside, so let's dive into that. But first, if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We started young, and since then we have reviewed over 2,000 vehicles at every price point.
No matter what you're looking for, from humble to high-end, we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family.
Let's learn a lot and have some fun with all the latest cars. All right, let's move on to the inside. Here's our key fob to start out with, typical Mazda key fob, and you have a standard smart entry system. Getting inside the vehicle, grab behind the handle, unlock the door, and it will follow the mirrors outward. And then we can take a look at the inside. And I want to start with the seats as always. So the base trim that comes with leatherette, however, everything else gets a real leather. And as you get to the Premium Plus trim, that's where you actually get a Napa leather instead. That is one of the nicest grades of leather in the business. And overall, the seats look very aesthetically pleasing, even in the black, but you can also get some other colors as well. One thing I want to say about the seats though is that they are a little bit firm. We've tried out many versions of this model at this point with different types of leather, and all the seats do tend to be on the firm side for the segment, so try that out if you're looking to buy one. Now the seat controls, you've got 10 ways of power adjustment across all models, and then most models also have the memory seating. Let's climb on inside. Getting into the rest of the cabin materials, we have a armrest which is really nicely padded with a double stitching detail. Leather runs through the center section and a soft touch plastic along the top. We have an aluminum trim through the center of the door trim there. Soft touch plastic all across the upper dash. Leatherette through the center section with a stitching detail, and then more of the aluminum trim and leather along the console here. Everything fits together very nicely. This is a super solid and well put together cabin. Now we'll fire it up with the push button start. And with it all fired up, we can get into the individual details. We will start with our gauge cluster. As you can see, we have the 12.3-inch digital cluster. That comes on almost all of the trim levels in 2026. And of course, since we have a high-end example, you'll additionally find a head-up display. This head-up display is really large. It contains a lot of good information, especially when you're navigating. So we really liked that part a lot. Now, as we come back to the steering wheel, typical Mazda design, for 2026, they've expanded the availability of the power adjusting steering wheel and also the steering wheel heating. But I have to note something about the steering wheel heating. They actually only heat from here to here. And it's been extremely cold this week. We just went through a winter storm, and if they thought people wouldn't notice that, they may have forgotten that you do actually turn the steering wheel, so you have to grab the top and the bottom, and when you do that, it's freezing cold. That seems super chintzy for this price point, I have to say. Now, of course, you have standard rain sensing wipers on all models, and let's open up our interior storage here, take a look at what we have inside. Well, of course, we've got some donuts, but not a ton of them. We have 7 donuts for our signature donut test, and of course, as a family 3-row, that is going to be on the small side by a lot. Some things in the segment can fit 24 donuts in their center consoles. And there's not a ton of additional storage as well. We've talked about this in the past. You just have your cup holders and then an area here with a wireless phone charging pad. No center pass-through, no passenger storage shelf, none of that. So even though this is one of the biggest options in the segment in terms of length, not a ton of storage in the front. As far as the shifter, it's an electronic style. Pull back for drive. There are paddle shifters on the steering wheel. Go up into reverse. And when you go into reverse, you'll see a traditional backup camera or this 360 camera. This is on the Premium Plus trim level. And it gives you that regular view as well as the overhead, and you can switch to a different angle as well. No 3D spin. And then you also have an electronic parking brake with brake hold. Now right next to that, you have your control knob for the infotainment system, and we also have the volume knob for the audio system. We've got the Bose 12 speaker sound system, and we'll give that a sample right now. Overall sound quality is pretty solid, certainly fills up the cabin well. Alright, now in terms of our climate controls, you'll see a nice physical panel here, no fancy touchscreens or anything like that if you prefer those analog things in life. It is a 3-zone automatic setup across the entire trim structure, and one of the things that I'm happy to report about is for 2026, Mazda already gave you heated seats standard on preferred and above, but now they give you ventilated seats standard on preferred and above. So that means a lot of you guys leaving the dealership, even at a more moderate price point, will come away with ventilated seats this year. And then let's take a look at our main display. This is the 12.3-inch display. There is a smaller 10.25-inch display, but that's just on the very lowest end models. Most will come with this. That also means most will come with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is what I'm in right now. The system does support some very limited touchscreen abilities inside of just Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, but when I head into the Mazda's system itself, again, does not support that. So you do have to go back down to that knob and utilize that instead. This week we did have a few little tech glitches, that's for sure, and the overall pairing takes quite a long time compared to the competition. Up top, we've got an auto-dimming mirror. We have HomeLink remotes built into that. And then lastly here, I'll slide back the sunshade for our panoramic sunroof.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the rear seats and how practical it is. Before we even get inside, I do want to point out that the doors open super wide. These are about 90 degrees as far as the opening, which definitely would make loading in a car seat very nice and allows for easy entry and exit. Now, as far as the overall space figures are concerned for the CX-90, we're looking at 39 inches of legroom, 39 inches of headroom. Those are pretty decent figures for the segment. It's certainly not going to be class-leading. Things like the Kia Telluride, Hyundai Palisade, those are going to have more rear legroom. However, it's going to be a good amount of space, that's for sure. Now, I'm 5'9". This seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8", and I still have about 8.5 inches of knee room, so plenty of space. Also, my feet can easily slide up underneath of the seats. Speaking of sliding, the rear seats do slide forward to be touching the front, so that's pretty nice for parents. And they also do have the ability to recline a pretty good distance as well. Now, let's talk about overall seating capacities, because the CX-90 allows you to have either 6, 7, or 8 passenger seating, and it varies largely depending on what trim level, what powertrain, all the stuff. So if you want to learn all about that, we have a picture of it on the screen right now as what trim levels come with what. But as you can see, we have actually today 7 passenger seating on this particular model. Now, if we fold down the center armrest, we have 2 cup holders inside. And then as far as the features here in the rear, we have vents right here, 2 USB ports, our own climate zone down here at the bottom. And a new feature for 2026 is the fact that all but the very base CX-90 will at least have heated back seats. Now, you can also get ventilated back seats, but that's just going to be on the Turbo S Premium Plus trim. Now, over on the door trim, rear window sunshades, those are also included on almost every single model. And the rest of the door trim is nicely done with leatherette, some more of that trim piecing, and you have a ton of door storage down below. It easily swallows up that water bottle. All right, so let's go ahead and check out the third row of the CX-90. In order to get back here, you just grab that little lever right there. Just be aware that the seat back does move. It doesn't tilt out of the way. And let's go ahead and check out the third row. Now, once I get back here, we're sitting at about 30 inches of legroom and about 37 inches of headroom. Those are going to be okay figures for the segment. There are certainly options that are bigger, such as Grand Highlander, the Traverse, the Palisade, and the Telluride are going to be a little bit bigger in terms of legroom and headroom. But overall, it's not too bad. I do want to point out, though, that my feet cannot slide up underneath of the seats, and the thigh support is certainly not fantastic here. I wish the seat was raised up a little bit more, and that would certainly make me quite a bit more comfortable. Now, as far as features, you may notice that we have 2 cup holders here. We have USB ports, and then we have vents that are going to be oddly located way down here at the bottom. So I figure, honestly, your knee might block that. I wish it was located up here in the roof. And then we have 2 rear seats here in the third row. However, you can get trim levels that do actually have 3 across here in this model. Now, as far as how it rates on the third row rating scale, I'm going to say that this is fit for the in-laws. All right, so let's go ahead and check out the cargo area. A power tailgate is standard on all models. Hands-free comes on Premium Sport and above. And let's talk about overall cargo capacity. So when it comes to the CX-90, you're going to have decent numbers. 16 cubic feet with all the seats up, 40 cubic feet with a third row folded, and a maximum of 75 cubic feet. Folding the third row is pretty easy. It's not a power folding third row, but you can just grab those straps right there. There are not any handles to fold the second row from the cargo area, so I will have to go up there and do it manually. And now that all the seats are folded down, you can see that maximum 75 cubic feet of space. Are you curious how that compares to rivals? Well, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings. We've looked at all the 3-row midsize SUVs for sale in the market, and we've ranked them in individual categories that might matter more to you. Things like cargo capacity, interior luxury, technology, powertrain choices, and value are some of the big categories that we evaluate. And you can see the best options for this segment in all of those categories to make an informed buying decision. So we definitely recommend going to carconfections.com.
Recommend it.
We would definitely recommend going to carconfections.com/vehicle rankings to make that decision. Now let's get our cargo length, width, and height figures. As you can see, everything is nice and flat. And as far as cargo length, behind Drew's 5'8" seating position, 85 inches is what you can expect. From behind the second row, 48 inches. From behind the third row, 20 inches. As far as the opening, 43 inches wide. That's going to be on the narrow side, that's for sure, for the segment. As far as the height, 29 inches tall, so that's also going to be a little bit on the shorter side. Let's get our load-in height as well, 32 inches tall. Now, underneath of the floor, you have a little bit of extra room. You also do have a spare tire, which is kind of rare, especially for a plug-in hybrid. And we have our outlets over on both sides. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the 2026 Mazda CX-90. In this test drive, we're going to be discussing quite a lot, as you can see on the screen right now. We'll also be talking about our real-world experience fuel economy, as well as getting things like our sound level reading. But first, we need to start with a hard acceleration.
That was 60 miles per hour with the CX-90. So like we mentioned at the spec dump, there's really 3 distinct powertrains that you can get the CX-90 in, and there's a wide variety of power points. So what we're actually at is the center power point for this model, and that is the plug-in hybrid model. So this is a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine plus a 17.8 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack. All that together is making 323 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. So, like I said, that's a power figure that puts it right in the middle of the lineup, and it's pretty strong overall for the segment.
Yeah, so on the basic end, you'll have a 3.3 liter turbo inline 6-cylinder, and that's going to make 280 horsepower. It does have a mild hybrid system associated with that as well. And then they also offer the Turbo S powertrains, which is that same engine except the higher output version, and that makes 340 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. So really, when it comes to the powertrain options, they do kind of give you a wide gamut of choices. You have that base end option that's very good for the base end. We've experienced that multiple times. You have the Turbo S, which is pretty much like a luxury car experience. And then you have this plug-in hybrid for those of you that are looking for the most efficient powertrain option. And really, a plug-in hybrid is very rare within this segment, that's for sure. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely enough power to really kind of push you back in your seat, so don't think of this like hybrid as, a weak option or anything like that. It certainly has enough power. I will point out, though, that it definitely has a bit less refinement than what you get out of the 6-cylinders, as you might expect. Those turbo inline 6s we've lived with quite a bit in various products like the CX-70 and the CX-90, and I will say that I prefer the refinement of that, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with that. One way or the other, though, you get an 8-speed automatic transmission, and it's a nice shifting transmission. It's good and smooth in everyday driving, and then in sport mode, pretty quick on the shifts as well.
Yeah, and power is going to be routed to the ground via standard all-wheel drive. That's one of the nice things about the CX-90 is that you don't have to pay extra for all-wheel drive. That is included on every single model for 2026. And now that we're cruising down the highway, let's go ahead and get things like our sound level reading going 55. We have it on fan speed 1, and the rear climate has been powered off, so let's see how quiet this model is. 56.4 decibels is what we are sitting at as our sound level reading here in the CX-90. We don't sit here and guess how it compares to rivals. We can find that at carconfections.com/sound level readings, where we've looked at all of the competitive vehicles. And compared to some of its rivals, that's not going to be the quietest sound level reading in the segment or anything like that. It does have some pretty stiff competition, but it's very much in the middle of the segment. It's not going to be the quietest or the loudest.
Now we made it onto a back road, and this is a place where the CX-90, along with, well, pretty much every Mazda, shines. So they, of course, pay a lot more attention to driving dynamics than the typical SUV in this segment, and you can tell that as soon as you go around the first corner. Body roll is nicely controlled. This has a very sporty and agile feel to it overall. Of course, this is riding on a rear drive architecture, and that by itself does stand out versus the vast majority of the competition. They also do a great job with the steering. It is very hefty, not overly hefty, but it has a nice feel, and look how direct that is. It just responds immediately. You point and shoot. I think that's why, this vehicle has always gotten a lot of coverage as being like a more mainstream version of BMW, because BMW is kind of the closest thing that you can compare with the direct and sporty feel of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that does have a few drawbacks, and what I would say is ride quality is one of those drawbacks. Now, Mazda, of course, tries to balance, handling and good driving dynamics with good ride quality, but I will say that this CX-90 is definitely on the firmer side. Over the past week, we took it on actually multiple hour-long road trips to really put it through its paces, and I have to say the suspension does a good job, but it definitely lets in quite a bit of intrusion if you hit big bumps in the road. We actually have pretty big wheels on this model as well, 21 inches, so that doesn't really help our case when it comes to ride quality. And these seats are very much on the firm side, so all of that in combination does mean that compared to most of the competition, this would definitely be one of the more uncomfortable choices. That's not saying it's, incredibly uncomfortable. It's just definitely not as good as some of the other rivals like a Hyundai Palisade or Kia Telluride when it comes to the ride quality. Now let's also talk about fuel economy. So the inline 6 variants are both going to be rated at 25 miles per gallon combined, which is very good fuel economy. And we have actually lived with that powertrain, and it actually seemed to get that real world, 25 mpg. Now the plug-in hybrid, like Drew said, has about 26 miles of all-electric range, if you were curious, from its 17.8 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack. And as far as our real-world experienced fuel economy, I'll go ahead and put that on the screen right now. We're sitting at 23.5 miles per gallon on our week-long test. Now, we didn't charge the vehicle. Like I said, we took it on a longer road trip, so because of that, the vehicle was not fully electrified, but 23.5 is what you can expect to find if you're using this plug-in hybrid variant on its gasoline engine and as a regular hybrid. So overall, I'm a little disappointed by that fuel economy because that's actually worse than what you would get in an inline 6-cylinder. Especially on the highway, because the inline 6 is rated at 28 on the highway.
Right, and one of the interesting things about this is that when it isn't charged and is operating just as a traditional hybrid, it's not super smooth. You can definitely feel when it transitions between electric and gas, and the logic is a little bit interesting, how it runs the engine sometimes when you're at a stop, and then actually tries to turn off the engine when you're moving quickly. It's just kind of a little bit interesting with the overall logic. I think there's a good possibility that owners of this may not always charge it. As we know, some studies have shown a lot of PHEV owners don't charge their vehicles all that often. So just be aware of that if you're going to use this kind of as a more traditional hybrid.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be today's airball. Really, over the past week, we did not like the plug-in hybrid very much, quite frankly, compared to the other powertrains. We've lived with the inline 6s, and those are really fantastic powertrain options with a lot of refinement and great fuel economy. This plug-in hybrid doesn't really have the level of refinement that we are looking for, that's for sure, and also the all-electric range of only 26 miles is not very good. So I think I would just definitely stick with an inline 6-cylinder for sure.
And on the slam dunk side of things, we're going to say it's the premium driving dynamics as well as just the overall upscale feel of this vehicle.
Yeah. And after 7 days, do we like it better, the same, or worse? Well, I'm going to have to say this specific model we liked worse after living with it. This plug-in hybrid, like I said, just didn't really impress us all that much, and I couldn't help but find myself the entire week just kind of wishing it was the inline 6-cylinder. And also, I feel like, especially at the fully loaded price point like this model at $60,000, you don't really gain a ton of features over, ones that we've reviewed in lower trim levels, like a $48,000 premium Sport pretty much has every feature that this has. So we definitely liked this one a little bit worse. And let's talk pricing for the CX-90. So we start at $38,800 this year with standard all-wheel drive. And as you can see, there's a ton of trim levels, a ton of engine options. The full lineup of prices are on the screen right now. We are on one of the higher-end models. So we have the plug-in hybrid premium plus model. As you can see, it's a 2026 model year. That means we start at $58,500. We have optional paint color as well as $1,530 destination. All told, $60,625 as tested today. And if you're curious as to where it's manufactured, it is manufactured in Japan, so some of you guys might appreciate that. If you're looking to buy a Mazda CX-90 or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. The reason you should do that is because we have a tool on our website that will connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool to use while dealership negotiating. If you'd like to take advantage of that, as well as things like our monthly payment tool, you can find a link to that down below in our video description, as well as a pinned comment at the top of this video. But buying a vehicle is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's talk about resale, reliability, and the warranty. First up, let's talk about resale value. Mazda as a brand is estimated after 5 years and 60,000 miles to retain 59.44% of original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 25.28%. Now, it's worth noting that is actually a very good resale value percentage. It's one of the very best in the 5-year metric, and it is better than industry average.
Also above industry average is Mazda's reliability rating. When we take into account the latest information for our combined reliability index, Mazda is rated a few slots above the industry average overall.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale reliability data or our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase. Also, a part of that decision would be your warranty. You have a 3-year 36,000 mile basic warranty and a 5-year 60,000 mile powertrain warranty. Mazda does not do complimentary maintenance. And guys, that's all for our 7-day review of the 2026 Mazda CX-90. If you enjoyed hearing our impressions after living with this product for a full week, we'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to be a part of our Car Confections family. We have a lot of fun on this channel, and I promise you won't want to miss out. And if you're already a part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support because you make this all possible. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.